You know, all across our country over the past year and a half, especially, we have seen a major uptick in parents getting involved in their local school boards because they're realizing the hard way that they can't just, it's not a drop-off program. You can't just leave your kids at the step of the school and expect that your teachers have their best interest at heart. In fact, we just covered a story just this week about the Satan Club trying to, access children in the after-school program and the insanity that ensued with that. But joining us now to talk about this and more is Victor Perez from the Houston area. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Praise be to God. We're glad to have you on the show. I understand that you and your family, you were born in Cuba, and that you and your family fled Cuba. Can you tell us about that, please?
Sure. When I was 7 years old, which was 1960, we left Cuba and it was about a year or so after Castro came into power, and thanks be to God that my parents saw the writing on the wall, and so it was fortunately before the Bay of Pigs, so we could still fly out. So we flew out. My parents put my brother and I on a plane. And fortunately, we had some family already in Miami who had left earlier, and then my parents stayed behind, and then they came out like several months later, and then we all piled into a 3-bedroom house, like 2 or 3 families, and
Wow.
It was really, we weren't able to tell anyone that we were leaving. We were pretending that we would be back. We weren't able to say goodbye to anyone, any of our friends. Things were starting to get pretty dicey there in Cuba as far as what was happening, confiscation of property and lands and things like that, and requiring kids to go in the country to work in the fields and things like that. So fortunately, we were able to get out, and I grew up in Miami as a result. And it was in 3rd grade. I was the first Spanish speaker in my class. There were no other Spanish speakers. And so it was just a class, just like a regular English class. It was an interesting time, and fortunately, kids adjust pretty quickly.
I imagine, you were 7, so it's probably hard to remember all the details, but I imagine in the years that followed, you had some interesting conversations with your parents about those times. What was their impression about what was happening to their country?
Well, it was very disturbing. My grandfather had just passed away a few months before we left because he was very upset about what he saw happening in the country. There were I remember even at my age, shortages of food beginning to pop up. Seeing military, Castro's military, in the park where I played growing up. Shootings on the street kind of thing. Hearing the voice of Castro coming onto the TV, as they were entering Havana, I remember that. It's kind of a scary time, and so fortunately we were able to get out. I remember arriving in Miami, and I think at the time I remember my parents. I think they were given. There was one place in Miami where all the Cubans that were coming out of Cuba would go to. I think it was called the Freedom Tower there in Miami, and I think they were given a little bit of cash, and I remember the powdered milk and the cans of powdered milk and powdered eggs and so on. Starting our life in Miami, and my dad was only 40 years old, so he had to start over from scratch and leave everything behind and start over, and I remember he sold door to door.
Wow.
To provide for our family. So it was really interesting at that time. And then I remember with the missile crisis in Miami, and Cuban Missile Crisis, again seeing a lot of U.S. military in the Miami area. It was interesting, and I remember this is not particularly related to Cuba necessarily, but back in those days, we would have drills at the school, in the schools.
Sure.
Or like, taking cover, under your desk.
Yeah.
And staying away from the windows and things like that.
Wow. Mr. Perez, what was your first impression, on arrival into the United States? Like it must have been so different. The culture was different. What was your experience?
It was like, it was really different. I went to, that was my introduction to the public school system, if you will. Which was an elementary, South Valley Elementary, and I remember in my class, like watching the Kennedy inauguration in a little black and white TV in class, and also the Alan Shepard rocket, the first flights, from the space program, again on a little black and white TV. I remember at that time my parents weren't there yet, and so we were staying with an aunt and uncle. And my uncle, who was at the time only in his early, maybe like 20 years old, he would drive me to school. And I remember one day we were late, and he said, I said, what do I say when I'm late? I didn't even know what to say as an excuse. And he goes, just tell them, repeat these words, traffic jam, traffic jam. So it was just those basic things. And I walked into the classroom and the teacher said, Victor, why are you late? And I said, traffic jam. And she goes, okay. And so I thought those were like magic words. But basically, I had as I mentioned, I was the only Spanish speaker, the first Cuban in my class. The teacher was a young teacher, very understanding, very patient, and really a great teacher. And she really helped me a lot.
We're talking with Victor Perez.
Miss Jenkins.
Miss Jenkins. Talking to Victor Perez about how his family escaped Cuba. I want to get into the issues we're having with the school board. We're up against a break here. Let me ask you one last question before we go to break. How do you feel when you see kids today wear Che Guevara shirts or have Che Guevara tattoos, or you see Che Guevara murals? So how does that make you feel as somebody who was born in Cuba and had to flee?
That they're just like totally so ignorant and so sad they're so ignorant, and then they glorify. I'm giving them credit by just saying that they're ignorant, if you will, but that they glorify someone that murdered a lot of people, as a result of the revolution, and then afterwards. Yeah. Killing of dissidents and so on. So it's just really sad that that's being glorified. Yeah. One quick thing about my experience. One quick thing about Cuba and my experience is when we came to Miami, then we had the Bay of Pigs after that, and my uncle, who was living with us, the one that drove me to school, he went away and disappeared, and that was because he was in the Bay of Pigs invasion. And so we had several of our relatives that were around us in Miami that went away for a while, and we didn't know exactly why. It was top secret, if you will. And then they were in the Bay of Pigs, and fortunately, we were able to come home.
Let's talk about the school system. The last couple of years have been very interesting, because it seems like parents are really waking up to the difficulties that our school system really has. Whether it's teachers' unions or it's the woke ideologies. I mean, just go on TikTok, you'll see plenty of teachers, trying to cram their agenda down the throats of their students and to undermine what parents are, how they're trying to raise their kids. Tell us from your perspective how you see this.
Right. So just to give you a little background, I'm currently a candidate for school board here in Katy, Texas. We're in the middle of that right now. But my wife and I, we've been married 47 years, and I retired a couple of years ago from the energy industry, and we felt like we needed to get involved locally, to make a difference. Really, what better place than to get involved with the school board? And so we both started actually going to school board meetings and really paying attention. We raised our 3 kids here in the area, and now we have 4 grandkids here in the area in Katy, Texas. And so we've got skin in the game, and we started attending board meetings, listening to what was going on, and just wanting to make a difference there. And really, what kind of caught our eye a little bit was we've seen some of our nieces and nephews, that are now in their late 20s, even early 30s, really go in, that have been through the school system and have been through the universities, et cetera, that have really, where you see kind of the indoctrination that they went through, and now in their 20s, they have some kind of, I guess you could say, woke mentality, if you will. And so thinking about the kids here in the public school system and our grandkids, we wanted to start paying attention and trying to make a difference and speaking out. And, particularly related to some of the ideologies, particularly related, another issue here is also the inappropriate books and materials getting into the schools and getting into the library. So it's kind of like the overall thing is kind of protect the kids from the politics, and just get back to education and protect them from inappropriate materials and just ideologies that we don't need to be getting into that's divisive to kids. You can call it CRT, critical race theory, et cetera, but ideology that is divisive, that is hyper-focused on race, and it really is intended to divide us and not unite us. We have a very diverse school district here, and so we've been paying attention to that issue as well.
I find it very fascinating because, I'm thinking most people, they don't think, everybody wants to say, yeah, there are problems in the world, but it's not in my community. Oh, yeah, there's problem in the school system in general, but not my school system, not my local school. And then whenever we discover these problems, it becomes very difficult for us many times to try to get involved. You say, there's someone's already on the board, somebody's already involved in the politique. So how should people feel about things happening in their community, and should people start actually doing what you're doing and running for office, running for school board, running for local government?
Sure. First of all, parents need to really be paying attention to what their kids bring home, what their kids are doing in the classes, et cetera. Just pay attention to that, number one. And they have a lot of influence, believe it or not, if they just pay attention and speak out just to their principal, even about things, opting in or opting out for programs that they don't like. So they have the ability to do that a lot of times. And so they need to just pay attention and voice their opinions to their teachers and to their principals. So that's number one. And also, it's amazing how really very few people even show up at board meetings, school board meetings. And so there is the opportunity to speak out. Usually, sometimes it's very constrained as far as your time and so on, but you do have the ability to speak out. And at least here in Katy, the school board meetings are videoed and streamed, both live and then after the fact, so you can really pay attention to that. And just if you see the board that's not really being responsive to parents, if you see the board's not hearing the parents, if you see the board that's just going along with everything and not protecting the kids, not really being engaged and proactive, then really you need to be speaking out, and then consider running or supporting a candidate that is going to run, that will make a difference in the education and make a difference in terms of what I'm talking about, in terms of identity politics in the classroom, and also the early sexualization of children. That's the other thing that got me engaged and involved, was that aspect of it.
Yeah, and many people too are taking the same approach. We see a lot of parents being concerned with all the things that are taking place in the school. Maybe they weren't aware of. But I just to kind of piggyback off of Adrian's question here, I think maybe most parents would want to be involved in the schooling of their children to make sure that they are maintaining their innocence and they're not being exposed to these crazy things. I mean, this is just the top of the iceberg here. But I'm wondering, for the people who feel they want to be involved but don't maybe feel that they are equipped for this sort of role, what would you say to those people?
Well, at least, pay attention to your child as best you can in terms of, again, what they're bringing home, what they're learning. Try to be really plugged in with, maybe you don't feel capable or equipped to run for school board, but you can pay attention. The school board races have very low turnout. People just don't pay attention. And typically, the school board races, at least here, are sort of in an off the calendar, if you will, in terms of there's nothing else going on. There's not any big primaries or anything. So low, like last year when we had a school board race, the turnout was under 5%. So under 5% of the people elect a school board. And so that's one thing, is be involved and learn about the candidates and be involved that way and support a candidate. But also just, pay attention and communicate with your teacher about things that bother you, disturb you, and is also with the principal.
I saw
that's a big thing right there.
President
Make your voice heard that way.
President Biden recently was talking to some teachers at the White House, and he made this statement that it troubled me as a parent. He said to these teachers, and this is an article I saw out of the Daily Wire, dailywire.com. It says, the president spoke to teachers of the Teachers of the Year event held Wednesday, where he urged teachers to help students, quote, gain confidence enough to know what they can do, close quote. Going on to say, quote, they're not someone else's children, they're our children, he said. Well, when he said that, the internet went berserk on him, because it just comes down to what we think he means by that. And I can see us spinning on this where he doesn't mean anything more than just saying, hey, teachers, treat your kids like they're your own. I could see that. But at the same time, we are seeing in the school system where teachers believe and adamantly promote undermining parents on so many levels, as if we don't have the right to educate our children the way we want. They want to ensure that these kids grow up in their mold and in their likeness. And I see that as a major concern. Here's my question for you, though. Do you see, it seems to me, looking at these school board meeting videos that come out where parents are really angry and expressing this, it seems like these folks are on all across the political spectrum. They're not just conservatives and Republicans here. We're talking about libertarians and liberals. I think parents in general see this as a major issue, irregardless of their political ideology. How do you see that, Victor Perez?
Yeah, well, let me say, first of all, that, I always say that they are the children of the parents first. They're the children of the parents first, and their students second. And the parents' voices need to be heard. So I'm all about parental voice. And also, most teachers are very hardworking. They're underpaid. They're overburdened. So one of my topics actually is to help and support the teachers, but at the same time, recognizing that the parents have a big role in the education of their children. So so we have to recognize that the parents have a very important role, and we need to recognize that. And I think most teachers are, again, hardworking and underpaid, and it's a calling for them. And we have a crisis with teachers leaving the profession, and that's something that I'm really very worried about, because the classroom sizes are getting larger, and as opposed to getting smaller, and we need to staff for optimal class sizes. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're just about out of time now. Victor Perez has been our guest. It's been good to chat with you. Thank you for sharing your story of your family, and we'll certainly be praying for your future and getting involved in school systems. But thanks for encouraging everyone, everywhere, to get involved in the school system. God bless you. God love you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I will see you at the basketball game tonight. Praise be to God. It's going to be 4,000 screaming fans for seminarians. No, I'm going to be the only guy rooting for the seminarians in the whole building.
Well, I think the record is now tied between seminarians and priests. So you could.
We're going to sweep the priests tonight. The old guys have no chance against the young up and coming whippersnappers of the seminary. Either way, it's going to be a good time. Hey, don't forget to get in on that AGARD watch giveaway. $300 you could win. Go to grnonline.com/CDT. We'll see you on Monday.